Welcome everyone to today's lesson. Today we will be talking about the nitrogen cycle. I am Franz Gabriel S. Herbolingo and I am from 016 offering number of NY11. So let's start with defining what nitrogen cycle is. It is a biogeochemical process where nitrogen moves from both living and non-living things. This can include nitrogen fixation and decomposition. Let's move on to the processes of the nitrogen cycle. The first stage of this process is the nitrogen fixation. The second is the nitrification. The third is the assimilation. The fourth is the ammonification. And lastly, we have the denitrification. So, the initial stage of the nitrogen cycle is nitrogen fixation. This is defined as the process where nitrogen in gaseous form is converted into ammonia through the help of microorganisms known as diazotrophs. In this process, the nitrogen gas is deposited into the soils from the atmosphere. Then, two nitrogen atoms separate and combine with hydrogen to form ammonium. The azobacter and the rhizobium enzyme is essential in this process. These are the three types of nitrogen fixation, which are the ways in which the process can occur. The first one is the atmospheric nitrogen fixation. This is where the energy of lightning breaks the nitrogen into nitrogen oxides, and it is then used by plants. The second one is the industrial nitrogen fixation. Unlike the other two nitrogen fixations, this one is man-made, and ammonia is converted into various fertilizers such as urea. And third but not the least is biological nitrogen fixation. This is where bacteria transform unusable nitrogen into more readily usable compounds. This is usually fixed in the soil. The second stage of the nitrogen cycle is the nitrification. By definition, it is the ammonia is converted into nitrate by the bacteria in the soil. It is a very important process because ammonia gas is very toxic for plants. The process of nitrification includes the oxidation of ammonia, which produces nitrites. Nitrites are then converted into nitrates by Nitrosomonas bacterium species. Here below we have the chemical equations for the conversion of ammonia to nitrites in the top and nitrites to nitrates by oxidation in the bottom. The third stage of the nitrogen cycle is the assimilation. By definition, it is the process where the nitrogen compounds enter the food web and the ecosystem. The process of assimilation includes plants absorbing nitrogen compounds from the soil. The primary consumers then feed off of the plants. Lastly, the secondary consumers eat the primary consumers, and so passing on the nitrogen compounds like a chain. The fourth stage of the nitrogen cycle is the ammonification. It is the process where organic nitrogen returns to the soil. In this process, the dead plants and animals or the waste excreted is absorbed in the soil. Bacteria or fungi then decompose the body or the wastes. The process of decomposition produces ammonia. Then we move on to the last stage of the nitrogen cycle, which is the denitrification. This is the process where nitrogen compounds go back into the atmosphere. In this process, it occurs in the absence of oxygen. It is carried out by the Clostridium and Pseudomonas bacteria. The nitrate reacts with oxygen and produces the nitrogen gas as a byproduct. Here we see the process wherein nitrate is converted into the nitrogen gas. Now that we have those processes covered, we can discuss the importance of the nitrogen cycle. Why is nitrogen cycle really necessary for the environment? Well, here are 5 reasons why. Number 1. Nitrogen is the building block of DNA and an integral part of the cell composition. This means that life cannot exist without nitrogen compounds. Number 2. Nitrates and nitrites are released into the soil, which helps in enriching the soil with nutrients needed for cultivation. These can help severely in agriculture and cultivation of crops. Number 3. It helps plant to synthesize chlorophyll from the nitrogen compounds. If you remember, chlorophyll is a pigment which is responsible for photosynthesis. Number 4. This helps in naturally cleaning up the environment. And number 5. It helps animals utilize the nitrogen in the air and in plants. That's all for today. Thank you for listening. Again, I am Franz Gabriel Eserbolingo, and you may contact me in this information provided below. See ya!